The Yarn Bazaar.
हेलो एवरीवन, नमस्ते। मैं हूं आपका होस्ट प्रतीक गाड़िया एंड आई एम द फाउंडर एंड सीईओ ऑफ द यार्न बाजार. So at the Yarn Bazaar, we've been conducting webinars and podcasts during the lockdowns season in line with our mission to offer insights and management mantras to textpreneurs, and we try to bring about a positive change in the textile industry through this. Today's session is a roundtable discussion with influencers in the industry, as well as we have two guest speakers from outside to act as an inspiration for us across the value chain. The idea is to align everyone so that the industry can together flourish. So before we begin, I would like to introduce the two guest speakers. First, we have Robin Sir, Mr. Robin Singh, who's a former Indian cricketer as well as Mumbai Indians IPL member and batting coach. He's represented India in test match and about 136 ODI matches between 1989 2001 as an all-rounder. I have personally grown up watching him play. Like I was telling him earlier that I don't follow sports anymore, but I remember those days when we used to be a avid cricket follower. He's been coaching the Indian Mumbai Indians IPL team since 2010, and as a player, he was known for his calmness and ability to perform under pressure. And I think he was one of the first guys in the Indian cricketing team who had brought world class fielding into the Indian cricket team. So we are very glad to have you, sir, and we're looking forward to having great insights and inputs from you. And secondly, we have Miss Ridhima Pathak, who's a model, actor, voiceover artist, TV presenter, anchor, and I think she has many more hats than that. She's known for presenting various sports events, including, if I'm not mistaken, two World Cups. Is it? Right, correct. Two World Cups and at Star Sports.
Well, that's
So
right.
we're glad to have you too, ma'am, and we look forward to having great insights from you.
Thank you.
So I think it's a good time to start the session. Let's start with a quick introduction on yourself and your company, and we can start with Mr. Amit Lat.
Hi, very good afternoon to everyone. My special thanks to Robin and to Ridhima for joining us. It's a real pleasure to see you guys on a virtual screen with us finally. And of course, to our guest speakers from the industry, a great respect of what everyone is going through at this stage globally. So myself, Amit Lat, I'm based in Poland last 21 years. I represent the Indian business in Poland. As a group, we are involved into the business of textiles. Another vertical is logistics, and gradually now we are getting into an industry where as we talk here, diversification is extremely important, and food and essentials are one of those products which we are going to go online soon. Thanks to a gentleman out here, 99 years, Mr. Vivek Paliwal, who is going to help us out actually to take this initiative further.
Thank you so much, sir. Dhruv, can we have your introduction, please?
Sure. Thanks, Pratik, for organizing this. Nice to meet all of you all virtually. I'm Dhruv Toshniwal. I'm part of a family business called Banswara Syntex. We're a vertically integrated manufacturer of yarn, fabric, and garments. We work for both the biggest brands in exports like Ralph Lauren, Hugo Boss, Gap, Levi's, and a lot of Indian brands like Raymond's, Madura, Park Avenue, and Trent. And just excited to be part of this panel and share some insights on where we think the industry is going to be going in the future.
Thank you, Dhruv. Aditya, can we have your introduction, please?
Yeah, hi, Pratik. I'm Aditya Agarwa. I'm representing Flourish Natural. So we are a family-run textile company. We specialize in linen fabrics, made-ups, and scarves. And we're primarily an export-oriented company, but we also have a domestic business of branded, made-to-measure fabrics called Linen Fiesta.
Well, that's great.
Good to have you. Yash, can we have your introduction, please?
Hi everybody, nice to meet you here finally to discuss something about the industry. So my name is Yash Agarwal. I am from Topman International. We're basically primarily a manufacturing company dealing in various kinds of fabric, basically used for shirting for men's as well as for women's. We also have another division of high-end fashion embroideries, which we mainly sell to all the fashion houses abroad. Good to be sitting here with the industry experts talking about the future of our industry.
Thank you. And Sumit, before I let you give your introduction, let me just brief the panel. So they're doing something wonderful, and if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Ratan Tata has invested in their startup, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Can you please give your introduction and a quick brief on your company?
So, my name is Sumit Shah, and I'm one of the co-founders at Bombay Hemp Company. So our focus is on cultivating and bringing about a legal cannabis industry in India. So from this textile perspective, we are looking at hemp textiles in particular, where we have multiple divisions where we are catering to clients for yarns, fabrics, as well as end garment. So currently we have a fashion line called B Label, which is catering for like men's and women's garments. And we also service B2B clients primarily on the yarns and the fiber side.
Right. Thank you. And lastly, I would request Vivek ji to give his introduction, please.
Hi, this is Vivek. I'm a co-founder and CEO of 99 Years. We take the brands from India and South Asia specifically to worldwide e-commerce. So basically, we develop organizations' digital assets and launch them globally. Now expanding along with MSG to Europe and other places also. But basically, the forte is we are doing a huge amount of textile industry. Rather, my 60-65% of the brands in my portfolio are from textile industry only. Two reasons: textile is one of the highest exported consumer product from India to US and Europe because of cotton being a forte of India. So we do the products which are forte of Indian manufacturers. So, and we have now slowly gotten into South Asia, having brands from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, so all that. Then launching certain brands from Europe to Middle East and all this. So we approximately, except you can say China and Russia would be two markets where we are not going. The rest of the world, we take the brands. So we are a 2013 company and around 7 years into this. Prior to that, I was a professional with working with few MNCs like LG, Dell, HCL Infosystem. My last profile was I was a global head for a software company, operations and sales head. So after that, I started this.
Okay. So I think it's a good time to begin with a very general question. Lockdown has definitely impacted almost all industries, some positive and most negative. And a lot of people say that they're facing a set of problems. But I think if we go back to history and if we see Fortune 500 companies were made after recession. So having said that, it definitely brings a huge set of opportunities for every company, big or small, to actually capture this potential. And I would like to request the panel members to actually throw some light on how they feel business would be different post lockdown, and if they can give a very specific example in that case. So we can start with Amit ji here.
My view on the present situation is very simple. As Pratik rightly mentioned, there are business opportunities, and we have a great and a new learning of how to do business in a new environment. One key topic I would like to add here is automation and digitization, as we were speaking about, is going to play an extremely important role. And as times are changing, we need to change ourselves. Without change, definitely we are going to face a huge crisis. Let me give you a few good examples. For example, in logistics sector, there is extreme big boom out here in Europe, and we see what is happening. Why? Because a product which has to be delivered from store to the consumer, it has to be delivered on a right time. On right time, it has to be delivered, and there are important companies playing an important role, like the companies of logistics. So there are certain sectors which are going to face actually crisis, but there are certain sectors which are going to get a great boom. So it is gradually going to level up, as an industry.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Dhruv, what's your take on this? Because it's a big. If I'm not mistaken, it's Asia's largest, probably one of the largest companies that you're running here, and I'm sure you'll be facing your own specific set of challenges. So, how different do you think business would be post lockdown?
Yeah, there've definitely been a few challenges. I think focusing on the opportunities, because the challenges are pretty, common to all. But a few of the opportunities we're seeing, obviously a lot of opportunity in the personal protective clothing and equipment segment. So we're looking to work on a lot of antiviral fabrics, working on hazmat suits and making sort of medical equipment, which is business we never really focused on in the past. Apart from that, there's also been some consistency of orders from the uniform business, and we've primarily had fashion brands as our clients, but now looking for some stability from uniform clients. That's more year-on-year repetitive business, regardless of the cyclicality of business. And in terms of digitization, we're really looking to digitize a lot of our processes. We're starting with our sampling processes. So we've moved to having an online library of all our fabrics, which our clients can view. And obviously, there's a touch and feel element to fabric that's always going to be important in making the selection. It's not to say that clients won't receive samples and they won't want to see what a garment looks like. But the entire communication process being digitized definitely makes the whole supply chain more efficient, especially in a time when you can't travel to visit clients, show them samples. You have to do that virtually.
Right. So I was reading an interesting report which said that trends will also change in textiles. Like for example, if work from home culture actually flourishes, most demand for knitting fabrics will go up because people prefer wearing t-shirts than shirts at home and things like that. Yash, what is your take on that? Because you're primarily a knitting group. Weaving group, right?
So what we feel is the focus is going to shift, from fast fashion, like how it has been from the past couple of years, to core qualities and also to value-added items, which give you more value for the same price. Apart from that, what I am seeing is, for example, all these big box retailers. For example, the other day I wanted to buy an electronic appliance. I thought of going to Chroma, but then I realized I need to book an appointment online first before I go to the store. So this is something that all these big box retailers, they'll have to figure out how to get people first into their stores and then how to make them buy their products. So this is something that they'll have to obviously probably strategize something on, obviously.
Since you mentioned fast fashion, I'd like Ridhima to actually come in on this. You think actually consumers will actually change the way they buy things, whether it's fashion or electronics, or you think that it's just a matter of time that people will go back to the old traditional habit of doing things?
So I think people will change their habits of buy clothing for sure. And in fact, it has already started because, of course, I come from an industry which is majorly sports, but presentation has been a very, very big part of the industry, right? So we already have, for the shows that I do for Sony and ICC, we already have costumes being delivered online, which was never the case. We initially had a stylist who would come home, take measurements, see what suits us. But it's all online. You send pictures, and they just send you, clothing that will suit your personality, and it's all digitized, which is not seen before. And that's a much more handy way of doing it, because that way a certain brand can deliver across the world, which initially was not the case. So yeah, I think that's already happening, and I don't think that's anywhere to go anywhere.
Aditya, what's your take, especially if you were to speak about textiles, and you come from a very different background. So in textiles, your group is not focused more on commodity. It's mainly fancy or value-added items.
Sure, yeah, I agree. I agree with Ridhima and with Yash that e-com and digital sales will definitely increase. But at the same time, I also feel that the biggest challenge with the big box retailers is going to be that people can't really come and use the trial room, and no one's going to be willing to try on garments that someone else has worn before. So we're already seeing our retailers and basically the tailoring market really pick up, because they are very optimistic that the tailoring market, the share of which had been dropping over the past few years, will start increasing back up.
Right. So very interesting conversation we were having with Robin sir before the start of the session, and he was talking about how trial rooms in sports might change because some of the trial rooms might not have a capacity to say have more than 10 or 15 or 20 cricketers or say sports people while ensuring social distancing. Sir, what's your take on this? How different do you think textiles as a business or anything else will change?
I think it will change in sports. I mean, I for one, and I know I played the sport. Sitting outside, we play in so many different environments and diverse environments. I may say so. Like if you take the summers in India, it goes up from 30 to 45 degrees, and we're not always going to play in the night because of. I mean, if I look at going forward, there's a good chance that IPL will happen in October. Just for your information, and that's the latest news that I've got. And we have to finish that tournament within 37 days, 40 days. That's what I heard. Now, you take a simple thing like a towel, right? We use towels all the time. You have to be able to throw it. Nobody wants to use something where somebody else uses. So that's what I was saying earlier, that we have to find some solution for the garment in the garment industry where we can use something and throw it, which is inexpensive, something that's disposable, that is more from a cloth perspective, something that you can have, it can be sanitized, etc. As I was saying earlier, a simple thing like a t-shirt, right? And these are real simple things, but they become really critical when you play the sport. When you're sweating, you tend to wipe yourself on your sleeve here, for example, right? You have something that can be designed on a t-shirt that looks attractive but actually serves the purpose. Something on your collar, that the sweat does not come down. Something on your forehead. Just like women when they sit at home in the fashion industry, they will want to wear makeup without the mask because they can't really go out so much, right? Their hairstyle is going to be something that people are going to look at. You probably have a lot more different types of hairstyles, you know. So things that are visible, right? Things that are visible will definitely, we'll have to relook those things. Something like a socks, pair of socks, because we need to use that all the time. You have to use it and throw it. Now, if you look at the equipments even in the dressing room, most places do not have a washing machine. Most places do not even have a dryer. A simple thing like that, right? These are things that are going to come into play, right? And then I think importantly, I was just listening to everyone. Importantly, you have to win the trust of people. You have to win back the trust, especially when you do things like deliveries. It should actually fit the bill. You should not deliver something and your next thing, it does not work out. And again, you order and it does not work out. So I think communication with people, and if you probably have some area where they can have an extra set of communication to get things right, it might make more sense to get that right before you even send something out. And I think once you can do those things, these sort of things, it will help. I mean, today we are not even allowed to put sweat on the ball. I mean, put saliva on the ball. But I had a question for them because everybody is sweating. How does it make a difference, right? You're touching the ball. How it's going to help? So we have to find ways and means. We don't play with gloves, but we will have to keep using gloves. And I said earlier, it's not only about the players who are playing. It's about the people who set up the stadium. It's about the people who are going to be involved in food. It's about the people who are going to clean the place. It's about the sanitization. So, in my opinion, every possible area is going to have some sort of impact. And importantly, and if I may go one step further, if you look at fashion today, right? I think sport will take a hit, positive spin on this, in the sense that if you look at it positively, we'll be in a better position to advertise lot more, because you'll find a lot more people watching the sport on TV, and you probably can showcase a lot more stuff if you have an innovative design team or a lot more color in place to sort of change things around for the people. One of the areas that I see, and I'm just trying to think outside the box, right, is where do you have crowds? Where do people play sports? And where do you want to see these things? For example, you have universities, you have schools. That's where the maximum people will gather over a period of time. These are places where you can market your stuff, right? I'm pretty sure it's being done already. Probably it can be emphasized a lot more. Those sort of areas.
Very nice point, sir. So, unlike most of the panel members, Sumit, your company is a new entrant in the textile space.
Yeah.
So, what are the key changes you feel would happen in the industry?
So, I think there is opportunity everywhere, though there are a lot of places where there was opportunity and there is massive loss of order as well. The way people were consuming earlier is definitely going to change. And just from our front, like we used to run and we still run an e-commerce site for our products, and that has been down unfortunately for the longest time. But there are a few international clients which have approached us, and that is particularly for value-added fabrics. Now over here, we do have certain finishes which enhance the antimicrobial, antibacterial properties of it, and also sometimes make it sweat resistant or water resistant. So just recently, we've been trying to process a couple of large orders, particularly for these kind of finishes. So I think as we go ahead, there will be certain trends, especially like this, which will become the new normal, and that will become like almost every brand will pick it up, because like as Robin said, right, like it's about winning the consumer's trust. If a particular brand can make a consumer feel safe with buying their product, then they will get repeat buys, and they will continue to get business. So I think going ahead, that is something which is going to be fairly important, and particularly for the textile industry, it is going to be fairly impactful. As I feel that if everyone's sitting at home, the kind of consumption that used to happen is going to change drastically. Particularly, you will have people who would be maybe more open to buying large amount of casuals, and perhaps the consumption of clothes altogether would reduce. So yeah, those are some things where I see perhaps the change going ahead.
Vivekji, Sumit has spoken about e-commerce. I think it's the right time for you to come in. Uh, what's your take on this, sir?
So I'll go specific to first. I'll just give you a few things. The habit of buying for the customer has changed in last 60 days. People say this is a spurt, it will come down. It will come down, but it will not go to the previous levels. Today, like I'll just give you, big basket in a grocery is doing 3 lakh orders in a day instead of 170, 1,70,000. Now it might not go back, but it might rest around 2,20,000 and 2,30,000, if not 3 lakh. Now, a shift in grocery, shift in wellness, health and wellness, and all is bringing one thing very clear. Lot of homemakers are getting into an e-commerce space. Which was basically a domain that kids do it, husband do it, but they don't do it. So kind of a thing, they have been coming. If that happens, textile, home decor, fashion, and grocery, these four things will have a major surge in terms of demand because of this. And coming back to now the textile industry specifically, I am working with a few very topmost who is who of brands in India. They are early adopter of digital strategy, but specifically from a mid size to a lower to a larger size, what people have to see now, and which people will realize when they see that the larger organizations are doing it, is that they have to have a digital strategy now, which is digitizing their product profiles, digitizing their prints, digitizing their offering, having own website, which is an e-commerce website, getting into platforms. How many people sitting in an obscure part of an India can now feel and understand that he can sell across the world and each and every nook and corner of the world? People need to see. And it is not about digital or online versus offline. A biggest thing is that there has to be a conversion of an online with an offline. Offline has to take some help of online, and online has to do certain things where they have to give a convenience of look and feel, which is called the omni-channel or the convergence of digital. That's what is going to do. This was happening, but a very damn slow pace. What COVID has done is, what current lockdown has done is, it has given a leap forward. What would have happened in 7, 8, 9 years, it would have taken, or 5 years it would have taken, it has happened in 60 days. People have started realizing. So that's what it is going to happen. So e-commerce standalone obviously is not the only strategy. Yes, e-commerce, the surge and the data and everything says that this is the way it is. We are operating today in the lockdown. We are in a lucky space, 99 years, who is recruiting people. We have online, we have in last 60 days we have taken people where people are laying off. We are taking people. That's there, but and working overnight. So we have 2 shifts now. We work from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the night because that's a US time. And then we work for India time. So we work different this thing. So that's one way. But so e-commerce is going to be there. But as a brand, as a manufacturer, as a brand owner, as a textile industry, you need to see that you need to, just by saying that I'm going to an e-commerce will not work. You need to have an entire digital strategy, which is that these part has to be my digitized. This is the way I have to link it with my buyers. This is the way the B2B will work. This is the way B2C will work for me. I was 100% export oriented, by doing an OEM and bulk shipments. Let me also understand there has to be a B2C part. So mix of B2B, B2C. Are we sitting and seeing that can we sell in Australia or in Japan or in Middle East or in GCC countries? A lot of brands are not thinking about it. It is the time now we need to think about this and see a small B2B also getting onto it, digitized, which is going now. We are in US seeing a lot of traction in Amazon B2B. It has grown for certain brands. The total say 15 to 18% have gone as total contribution from B2B in last 60 days. Might not be a container load of orders, but orders are around 1,000 units, 800 units, 150 units, 20 units. This is all B2B.
Correct, sir. But I think being adaptive is not probably a major strength of textiles. So I do not know how textiles is going to adopt digital technology or whether they would embrace it or not. But I was attending a webinar by CRMs last Saturday. It was called Textile Mahakumbh, and they set up a Guinness World Record for having the maximum attendance for an online webinar related to retail. And they've been now pushing digital aggressively. Like they've been appealing to their distributors and their dealers that now is the time to actually embrace technology and use it to your own advantage. So specifically, I would like to request Dhruv, Aditya, and Yash to actually talk about this. How do you see technology shaping up in your company? Do you think companies like ours will actually embrace it, or would we still be fearing the digital and would be complaining कि boss अभी ठीक है ऑनलाइन बिक रहा है बट हमारा भी नहीं हो सकता है मतलब what is your take on that? We'll start with you, Aditya.
Yeah, no, I agree. We have to adapt. We have to do something. The business has to keep going on. I see that there will be some sort of a middle ground for textile industry. I think you can't completely work from home. The touch and feel is a critical part of the business. So I think for us at least, we are going to have a couple of days of maybe alternating, or a couple of days in the office where you actually touch and feel the samples, give approvals, but most of the communication will be done digitally. Even from a customer standpoint, I think a lot of the acquisition and the activation will be done digitally, but physical samples will have to go before converting. And yeah, I'd love to hear Dhruv's opinions on that too.
Yeah, so there's two parts of it. I think one, in terms of ways of working, we've adopted a fair amount of digitization. Where a whole company is on Google G Suite, so sort of working collaboratively through that. We're on SAP S4HANA, which is cloud-based. So a lot of our data is online, and it is possible for our merchandisers, for our planning teams to be working remotely. At the same time, there's a part of it that's related to interaction with the client that has a certain touch and feel aspect to it, as we talked about. I don't think that part of it is ever going to be digitized. So I think it is going to be somewhere a midway solution. And I think the companies that adopt the ways faster will definitely have a competitive advantage, just because it will give you a better speed of response to client. And I think something that's becoming increasingly important in the industry, even before COVID, was lead time and responsiveness, flexibility, ability to adapt changing situations and client demands. So this is just another part of that.
How about you, Yash? What's your take on this?
So what I think is work from home is going to be a necessity. It's not going to be an option for companies like us going forward. So companies should already start thinking about investing heavily in IT infrastructure, who have till now been a little hesitant to do that. So, and one who does it earlier, as Dhruv mentioned, one who does it faster will be able to get the benefits out of it much more faster. Having said that, obviously we'll have to start digitizing our platforms. We'll have to start uploading our libraries online for our buyers to see the collection. Another point is going to be all the trade fairs in future are probably going to happen online virtually. So we need to be prepared for a scenario like that where we are not able to travel to these fairs, but we are able to display our collection while sitting at home. So that is something we'll have to definitely put our focus on.
And both Topman and Banswara, these two companies, I know for a fact that they're always present in on the international trade fairs, especially the European ones. So,
Correct, yeah.
and this year I think it had a major. I mean, it was not a success at all because of the Corona or COVID situation. So, Dhruv, you think it will be possible to have online trade fairs?
Honestly, I don't know how that's going to evolve. I mean, the shows have been an integral part, but they've been less and less important even without coronavirus as time has passed. I think it's more about building deep relationships with your client, and the show was one of the ways to do it. We've just seen clients being more open to interacting on a one-on-one basis, and we think the interactions will move more towards that, and shows will be a less important part of it. But it'll be interesting to see how it evolves.
Yeah. Amit, you're a volume player, definitely. I mean, the volumes that you guys do is pretty big. So I do not know the financials of your company, but most Indian textile companies are actually more driven on the top line. Like they want to focus on volumes ki sale badhana hai. And most of them are actually not focused on efficiency or getting rid of redundant processes to actually derive on the bottom line of the company, which is net profit. Now, the discussion that we are having that probably this particular situation has forced many companies to rethink on their strategy and focus on having better efficiency. Companies like TCS have already announced that they will be cutting down a lot of their commercial real estate and would be working from home, which will have a large impact on their balance sheet as well. What do you think this situation will turn out to be?
I think one extreme important point out here I would like to mention, and as the other panelists mentioned, is how do you increase your presence in various global markets? Trade fair were one of those key factors where people were participating and showcasing their products. But I think your network of clients or representatives in various countries are extremely important, and we believed in this from day one. When we came into Europe, we thought, we are going to play on the other side of the game in terms of being very close to the client. Now this helps us, our presence in Poland helps us to actually cater the entire European market. And client has got a lot of trust, especially, big companies in India, they really need to think to go global, have their setup and their presence in the European market. If they really want to grow and increase their business, and the bottom line is extremely important out here, because that trust factor, which is extremely going to be important for a client sitting very close to you, this will help you to increase your bottom line gradually. And your facilities, what you provide, through your on-time deliveries, flexibility of giving smaller shipments, LCL cargoes. Instead of that, you can get your cargo into FCLs, into your warehouses, and distribute it to those clients where they are not able to take full cargo loads. And these are certain important factors, and as this also helps us to go into the e-commerce platform in terms of delivering to various marketplaces. And this is where I see most of the companies in India, when I see China versus India, I see Chinese are more aggressive in terms of their policies, in terms of their strategies versus the Indian companies. And I don't know why. I've been telling them since a while that, it's time actually to do your setup and have your presence somewhere in, for example, GCC countries, or whether it is Europe, or whether it is US. I know a few companies have gone into the US marketplace, but what about the European market? It is a large market size, and it helps us, your presence in somewhere in Central Europe or East Europe gives you an immediate effect. You can cater to Balkans, to East European markets, Russia. This gradually increases your sales.
Right, sir. So, Ridhima, continuing the discussion with you, since we're speaking about digitization, if you were to look at Bollywood as an industry, there's a lot of discussion in that industry that Netflix or Amazon Prime or these kind of platforms have actually disrupted the viewing feel of a movie. So at least the big production houses still argue that an event-based films can only be enjoyed in a theater. But if you were to come back to sports, then I think definitely there's no substitute to a live sports, like watching from a stadium. But on the other hand, if you look at a platform like Hotstar, I think the viewership of IPL has actually soared because it has enabled every person, someone who's while traveling also from house to office, to actually view the game. So what's your take on digital and how it affects an industry, positive or negative? Your take?
So I'll give you a very live example that I was a part of during the ICC Cricket World Cup 2019. I was a part of ICC's digital team. I was a digital presenter. So what ICC did is that they broadcasted digital presentation of the cricket matches just like TVS. But the views that ICC got on the digital was way above the host broadcaster, which was 2 billion views. So the reason why we had that kind of views is because everybody has a phone. The presenters have a phone, and the places where a phone can go, cameras need permission. So we were interacting with the players. We caught hold of the players. We took certain bites, and the kind of content that we were creating, anybody and everybody was being able to enjoy that kind of content because somehow we saw that on phones and on digital, our cricketers, or for that matter, experts and presenters, were a lot more relaxed. That was more like a home-like comfort zone for them. So the viewers got to see a very natural side of watching cricket and interacting with their players. And we created content which TV was not being able to create that kind of content because TV has to follow a certain protocol. Here we can create 2-minute videos because that is a consumption of the normal viewers. Now, talking about broadcasting in general, I think one thing that will change and which has already changed. So that was ICC, and we did that right before COVID-19 happened, and that's where ICC saw that digital, and even for that matter, even SAS, that digital was the way to be when it came to broadcasting. Like you very rightly mentioned that even though we cannot replace the kind of ambience and the atmosphere that live matches have when you go there in the stadium, but having said that, for all those people who cannot travel to those cities, those countries, and cannot afford those kind of tickets when it's happening in England, Australia, South Africa, etc., your phones give you the potential to watch that match from places where electricity is. That's the reason why your viewership increases. And for that matter, because there's going to be so much viewership on your content, there are going to be more apps like Hotstar, and that's going to get even more premium. That is number one. Number two that I see is that I've also hosted the Asian Games, and I'm actually a host of the NBA. I feel that this is the time for a lot more sports to be introduced in India because there's going to be viewership for everything. Basketball, your hockey, when the Olympics come in. The thing is that the way Hotstar promoted cricket and IPL, we need apps to promote something like the Olympics, something like shooting or fencing or whatever. So more sports come in. And because there is going to be a potential for you to be a star in so many other sports, a lot more people would start playing other sports, even if it has to be indoor. So I think it's a better time for sports right now because there's going to be a certain audience for everything. Secondly, there was a time when there were certain kind of people that were really laughed upon. Those were influencers, your digital influencers, people who were on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. Now, to answer your question, sir, Amit sir, we were talking, you just spoke about how do we make your presence felt. A certain part of your presence felt would be the influencer marketing. One of the things that China went really hot on was on influencer marketing. You're getting a platform where you have a YouTube content creator, which already has like 1 million followers, and that too engaging ones. It is not a Shah Rukh Khan or an Amitabh Bachchan who comes on the screen with one movie and goes back, and he's got 70 million followers on Instagram, but those are not engaging ones. These are influencers who are engaging with their audience day in and day out. These are the kind of people who provide you that platform to sell your brands, to sell your products, because they have viewers and content absorbers from across the world. So influencer marketing becomes a very, very key point in everything, in terms of your textiles, in terms of any kind of product, or for that matter, they replace big faces who were very big on TV, because right now, people who are very used to watching faces digitally, those people become a center of attraction. Thirdly, in terms of textiles and fashion, I wanted to mention that one thing that a lot of people would concentrate on, that we people who faced the camera concentrated on, was prints and colors that work for camera. You know, this is something going to be a household thing. Everybody would want to look at prints and colors that work for camera, like like a white does not work, and when the sunlight is there, because my face becomes, it's my face is blurred. Or say I cannot go for a lot of polka dots because it jars the screen. These are the kind of things that it will become like a household thing for people to imagine and talk about. Another thing that I have seen in the past couple of days, that I've been hosting a lot of shows. So I host a lot of stage shows. So now stage has become my own laptop, and I'm hosting stage shows from my own, home and stuff. The kind of content that we create and the kind of marketing that we have to do is supposed to be super smart and super innovative, because a person's ability to observe content is only 6 seconds. So an average person is only on a certain content for 6 seconds. You've got to be extremely innovative, extremely catchy. It has to be smart. So, I'll share an example with you. When I used to do stage, so if I'm hosting everybody out here, a lot of time my content, say in 10 minutes, 5 minutes of my content was engaging with the audience in terms of, let's cheer for the person who's coming in. And I would say the content was a little more fluff. I cannot afford to do that now. It has to be 10 minutes of smart content where everything that I'm talking about a certain person has to make sense. You cannot throw things at someone which is just to fill in the air. That cannot happen. So this is a pure broadcaster kind of perspective, that your content has to be crisp, smart, and it has to have a lot of knowledge in it. And another aspect that has been working for me and for a lot of brands that I get associated with is a lot of humanitarian aspects, something that we used to talk about in terms of, global warming, your clothing has to be environment friendly, stuff, things like that. Now, I think a lot more focus has to be given to that. Everything has to have a very humanitarian approach to it. I think people have become even more conscious about these things post the COVID-19, and these are the places where, say, companies can step in. This is where innovation can happen. So, yeah.
I think Amitji had a heads up on being presentable. He's wearing a nice Ralph Lauren baby pink shirt. But couple of key takeaways I think I have from Ridhima's statement. One is the point you mentioned on reach. कि जिधर बिजली नहीं है, electricity नहीं है, TV नहीं चल सकता है, उधर the reach of mobile has enabled people to view what they want to view.
We saw that with the 2019 World Cup. ICC Digital presented viewership was 2 billion, which neither ICC host broadcasters, which is your Fox or your BBC, could generate, not even Star Sports in India for that matter.
Right. And the other thing you mentioned is so correct. I think post TikTok, there's the attention span of everyone's gone down. So, people want something quick. If it's good, they would continue engaging with it. Otherwise, they'll just flip. So in textiles also, I think what we need to make sure is that whatever digital system we are implementing, whether it's for internal communication or for external, we need to be ensured of, the content, the process, how the flow is happening. Because if a customer comes and if he comes across a product, whether it's a yarn or say a fabric or garment, if it's appealing, then they would actually probably scroll down and look at it. Otherwise, they might just flip. Robin, sir, you played international cricket back in the 90s, which was a very different era compared to today. And I think you've, with IPL, which is a complete change of format in the cricketing as a sports, you've been a part of IPL also now since 2010 with Mumbai Indians. What is your take? How do you view digitalization and changing trends? You think IPL? So a lot of people argue that IPL has actually changed the game. Not for the good. People are not enjoying test matches anymore. What is your take on digitalization and changing trends from a cricket or sports perspective?
I think I want to disagree with that to a large extent for many reasons. If you look at, if I go back to say 2000 in India, I don't think economically most people earned a lot, right? Most people probably hardly earn $100,000 a year. I don't know how many people know that. Just to give you a small example, when I was playing Ranji Trophy in 2000, that was 2000, I was still playing for India. We used to get 10,000 rupees per match, which was ridiculous, right? And if you didn't play for India, right, or you didn't play in a league across the globe, say, let's say many of us used to play in England, there was no way you can actually make an honest living, right, in the sport. Okay, so the moment IPL came in, right, in 2007, of course, people started making a lot more money only if you played for India. Just remember that it's only if you played for India. At no stage actually you played, and remember there was no digitization. We hardly ever used to be seen on television. It doesn't matter how good or bad you were, right? But the fact of the matter is that no one used to be seen. But the moment IPL opened up, it opened up almost every single industry. You can name anything you want. You can name catering, you can name advertising, you can name the fashion industry, you can name entertainment industry, you can name writing. There were people who were dead and gone in the sport, if I may say so, quote unquote. But they actually came back into the picture. They were old cricketers you never even heard of. Today they are on every possible TV channel that you can talk about, right? So I think that is one thing. The second thing, and most importantly, in my opinion, what it has done is actually made people realize that thanks to Lalit Modi, whatever people may say, but he's actually changed the face of sport globally. It's not in India, right? Because the way sport he marketed the game, even though it could have been done far better, and it's getting better and better as we go forward, it opened up things like hockey, it opened up things like badminton, it opened up other sports, right? You had basketball, today you have table tennis, right? You had lawn tennis for some at some point in time, right? So I think, and many more sports that will come into play. Today, everyone feels that they have an opportunity to do something really great in the sport because of the digital space, right? And and as as Ridhima was saying earlier, it gives you an opportunity. Today, you don't need to market. You don't need a company to market you. You can market yourself. I mean, I know when we were playing sport, right? There were only a few writers, and you depended on those guys to write nicely about you, and that was totally rigged. This so today at least there's a lot more fairness in what you're doing. Today you can take anybody can go and take a camera, film you, put it, and you're out there in the market, and people say, hey, and you know what? We have actually taken a lot of people from these places. Everyone sends us videos. Of course, we don't give out our numbers, but we have our sources where we get enough and more videos where we have never ever seen anyone from any corner of India, any part of the world for that matter, right? To see these people, and we have a call in to them, and we say, okay, why don't you come and have a practice with us? If, of course, if the organization can afford it. So I think the reach and what sport IPL has done, and I keep saying IPL because it is a fact, right? What it has done to sport in this country and globally. Now, if you look at the, and of course, when IPL started, they had deals with all these other countries across the globe. The money for all these countries went tenfold. Then you had all these other leagues that started across the world. So for someone to come and say it is done bad, I think it's a bit sad, because the sport has to move on. It's just like the fashion industry. People used to cover themselves. Today they expose a little more, and people don't like it. Well, it's someone's taste, right? I mean, I have never played T20. I would have loved to play T20, but it's not my era, right? We played the sport because we like the sport. Of course, we achieved, and there's an opportunity out there for everyone if you can stay relevant in the sport, right? To do something today. So my take is quite simple. It's how you look at things, and if you can take it positively and see how you can incorporate those things into your agendas of what you want to do going forward, and use the platforms and the space, right, available to you to make it an advantage. That's the way I would see it. So, T20 or what it is, T10 that's going to come, is something that people are not going to change. There's more and more cricket. There are more and more sports. There are more things change. There'll be more people to like it. Just to go back on one point that Ridhima was saying, yes, and I know because I'm involved with cricket, and I think something that the fashion industry can look at, and it's for these guys, is women's cricket. Because I know for a fact that they're pushing women's cricket, right, in the World Cup, and it's going to become a big thing in India, and it's a big industry. People have not touched into the women sector of things. We've been focusing on the men, but the day India wins a World Cup or they become number one team in the world, you will see the surge. So it is something that they can tap into for women's cricket. because they have started getting contracts, which in their lifetimes they have never got.
Right, sir. So before I request Vivek ji and Sumit to address to this question, I have a question for Dhruv. Dhruv, since we've been discussing a lot on digitization and changing trends, what about being online you think would work for textiles, and what part of it you think will, no matter what, not work for textiles?
Yeah, so as a retailer, online will obviously work. We've seen e-commerce brands growing, and I think media companies becoming more important too as channels for brands to distribute products. So definitely the retail part of it being digitized is something we're going to see.
From a B2B, pure B2B perspective?
Yeah, from a B2B perspective, I think the first place to start is sampling. I think putting collections and libraries up online. And I think in terms of the actual production processes, it's still a very physical business. You're still manufacturing product and you still need to see the physical products. I think that part of it is something you can never really lose.
Okay. Since you're mentioning about sampling and qualities, I've been to Boheco's office and have met Sumit and his team there. They do a lot of sampling. They do a lot of R&D with, how linen or specifically hemp can be converted to fabrics, whether it's weaving or knitting. Sumit, how do you think you can enable digital technology to ease sampling for all your prospective clients? Because that's a huge cost for you, right?
That's correct. So that's one thing we realized that to sell fabrics, that's one thing which is absolutely necessary. And because hemp is a new fabric in the entire market, people definitely want to touch and feel it. So when we started off, with a platform called hempfabriclabs.com, which caters to this specific reason. And that is something which we basically set up it's an e-commerce platform where someone can place an order for 10 meters up to 1,000 meters of fabric online. If you want to order, you can order swatches of each fabric. You can select it. You have the weaving parameters. You have the dye specifications. Everything is listed online. So from our perspective, it just reduced a lot of manpower requirement. If people used to come to us with interest, we would direct them to a website. They would order as per requirement, and we would have an operations backend that would service the order. So that enabled us to cater to a lot more sampling orders. And I think going ahead, that is something which we would further leverage given the situation.
Okay. Vivekji, we have here a couple of manufacturers from textiles. Some are into yarn manufacturing, garment manufacturing, as also fabric manufacturing. How do you think companies like yours, or say digital in general, can help these companies cater to their clients or prospective clients and increase their sales while making sure that cost of acquisition is low?
So, sir, the basic fundamental of 99 years is build an organization digitally and scale up globally. So why we say that is, it's not only about the e-commerce, it is how you entirely approach your go to market digitally, which is like Ridhima said, a lot of influencer marketing, a lot of blogs, a lot of this. This cost you nothing in terms of the traditional marketing technologies which were there, like
I think, sir, it's safe to say that actually it's not an expense. It could be looked as an investment.
It is an investment, but I'm saying the vis-a-vis what it used to say. Today, if I am creating a product which is specifically to a certain countries of GCC, I'm giving an example, just an example. I can go and do my digital marketing, pinpointing the demography and the strata of the people whom I want to go and pinpoint and do it. Sitting at one corner of India, I can do that. That's the technology is all about. So if you are able to do that, it certainly gives you the customer acquisition. The acquisition cost goes to almost negligible. What you need to do is you need to have a good innovative product and the style of presenting it so that people capture that. Like Ridhima said that, influencer marketing. Yes, I do a lot of blogging. I do a lot of blogs. I engage a lot of bloggers in US for different things. I have a crazy kind of influx of inquiries and everything coming for this thing, because that's the way people are. There is no star sitting there who is marketing it. So today, that's the way you can go. You can go demography wise. You can go strata in terms of what kind of an education, class, age, and you can market your product. Pinpoint to the, so that carpet bombing kind of a advertisement on a TV, the era is gone. So first of all, so that's there. Now the second part is that if you are doing that, then what is the way that the person sitting in a certain corner of the market will get your product? Either you engage again on the traditional manner of owning a distribution business, or you engage on an e-commerce platform, which will ensure today, if somebody from, I'll take a reverse. If somebody from outside want to come to India and want to start selling, which distribution system will give you a coverage of around 22,000 pin codes? None of the distribution system can give you that. Single e-commerce can give you. You go to Flipkart, it will do it. You go to Amazon, it will give you. Now, what you need to do is, you need to make the entire digital content like this and reach to the people in the depth and the width of the country, and enable that. Okay, I can supply you the product. That's the cost of the acquisition of the entire customer is going down, and that's where. So one, you have to be very innovative in your products. You cannot have a run-of-mill products, because that doesn't give you a profitability. You need to have something different in your product, which gives you some amount of premium, and people will pay for it because it is unique. Second is, you need to do a unique this thing. I again said that a lot of technologies which were there and which were sitting have not been used, will now get used. Small example, lens card. The very clear-cut example of an AI, augmented reality. You click your photograph, keep on putting lenses and see what is working on you. Why this cannot work on a garment? It will work. Somebody has to create that. That's the only thing. So somebody sitting in California can take a garment created in Bhiwandi and see that whether it is fitting him and it is like, and give an order. That's the way the things will move now. So augmented reality. Today there is a fashion, lifestyle and fashion portal called Purple. Purple has very clearly a system where a woman can see that whether this kind of a nail polish or any color product, which is basically the lipsticks or the lip glosses or a nail polish or any kind of a thing, will suit her or not by just doing an augmented reality. Faces shows. We did a project for a jeweler where the product is not available on an offline store, but he can click into that, take an iPad and see whether those, at least the pendants and the earrings are working for them or not. This all will create. So textile also very clearly, if this kind of a thing happens, if this has been adopted, now the onus doesn't lies on the textile industry itself. Onus lies on people like us who go and present this solution that this cannot happen. The person who's day in day out producing product in textile you cannot have an onus lying on them to create this kind of a technology and say, okay, they have come. The onus is their responsibility is early adoption and propagating it. But people like us have to give that kind of a technology to them and enable that, sir, all this is possible, let's do it. That's the way it is, basically. And the costs will reduce as you will take more and more digital front on the entire this thing, which has, as said, 2 billion of viewership. Tell any broadcaster in television to think about it. They will talk about some astronomical amount of money to be used in that. And what these people would have done is would have been in some fraction of that amount of product, amount of money. So that's where it is. So AI has to be there. The sampling product as an AI. Why we cannot build a digital AI based store for a home decor for a client of yours? We can do that. He can take a digital tour and say, okay, send these samples. These look good because it is looking this kind of a styling. But that has to happen.
Also, sir, there's a lot of mixed thoughts in the industry now. If I were to talk about specifically textiles, some people say that because social gatherings will actually go down, so sale of value-added fabrics or garments will come down. On the other hand, there are some people who feel that, boss, now you cannot play a volume game anymore, so you have to focus on margins, and hence sale of value added items like say hemp or linen might go up. So we'll just take a quick consensus here. We'll go one by one, and we'll ask everyone on their particular company one changing trend that you think you will do in your company now, considering the current situation. We'll start with Aditya. Aditya, what is the one thing you're doing in your company in terms of changing trends?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I mentioned earlier, more focus on the domestic tailoring business and also a bigger focus on home because it's going to be a more important category going ahead.
Right. Yash, what about you? Yash, your mic is yes.
Yeah. What I feel, our company's focus is going to shift towards value-added products. When I say value-added products, it means environmentally conscious fabric or sustainable fabric, as Ridhima pointed out. We have seen in this past 2 months, because of the lockdown, how the environment has changed. There has been a lot of reports of mountains being seen from far, dolphins being seen back. So when a consumer goes to a store, they will have it in the back of their mind that I want to buy an environmentally conscious product. Like I want to do my bit to contribute to this change. So I think the trend is going to change towards more sustainable fabrics. Having said that, the brands, they have to take care that the pricing they do of these products has to be right. We see even now these sustainable fabrics being sold, but people are hesitant to buy it. Why? Because they are very highly priced as compared to other regular products. So we'll have to get that balance of the right product and the right price, and I think people will be ready to buy it. Yes.
Sumit, there's a huge pool of market ready for you as long as आप अपना भाव कम करो. कम कमाओ, Sumit.
Exactly.
What's your take, Sumit, on this one changing trend in Boheco?
So I think, as Yash also mentioned, there are certain value-added fabrics which we want to work with, and specifically, so we have been working with a few enzyme developers and treatments for, again, just enhancing the antimicrobial properties, enhancing certain properties. And the idea would be to come out into the market just to sell these fabrics or sell an end garment with these properties. So till now we had not thought of going down that line. We were primarily selling the product on letting the USB be hemp. Now with the changing trends, we believe it should be hemp plus these few elements as well.
Right. Dhruv, Banswara, what is the one thing that you're changing now in terms of trends?
Yeah, definitely moving more towards technical fabrics, medical fabrics, fabrics for firefighters, things that have some sort of performance element to them. And also part of value added, a lot more natural fibers, so a lot more wool and a lot more cotton.
Since you mentioned performance fabric, Robin sir, what is your take on one key trend in terms changing trends in textiles?
I think it has to be environment friendly, and as I said, because we are always out there to open, something that probably would keep you cool. I don't know if cotton is the way to go, but we tend to move away from that in the past because it used to be a little heavy, and we used to wear fabrics that are much lighter. It doesn't absorb too much sweat. But some of these fabrics are pretty uncomfortable as well. So I think you have to find a mix between both in this day and age, especially considering that the situation is a lot to do with health.
Right. As a consumer of fast fashion or fashion garments, what is the one key trend you hope textiles industry actually embrace?
Well, I'll tell you something. There was a very interesting word that Dhruv mentioned. It's called collaboration. I think the time for competition is over. I think it's all about just collaborating now. Like, for example, if I am really intrigued by Sumit's, his entire idea towards textile, and if say Dhruv at the same time is talking about some performance, sorry, I don't know the jargons of the textile industry, but some say performance fabric. I see a great platform for collaboration, and I see for me to collaborate with both of them because I have a certain following. So I think for any brand that we are here talking about, competition, the era of competing with each other is gone. It's all about collaboration now. And like I mentioned earlier, one thing that from say only a visual perspective, because I work in a visual medium, I think that one thing that I see is the patterns, the colors. Like I earlier mentioned, that most of us who work on camera, like there has been more than 2 years since I have bought a certain piece of clothing that I've said, okay, it looks good on me. I've only gone out and said to myself, will it look good on camera? Now, because everybody, whether it's my mother who is a teacher and just now gotten very accustomed to using Zoom and Meet and Hangout and all of that, she's looking at things that look good on camera. The kids are going to like some color, some background, and all of that. I think if teachers are thinking in that direction, it's going to be a very household thing for people to think about what works on camera, because everything is happening on camera now, whether it's your phone camera, your laptop, or say the bigger one. So yeah, I think that the whole visual perspective of textile is something that people will concentrate on.
Nice. You mentioned about collaboration. The first time I met Amit ji personally, we were a group of 8 to 12 textpreneurs who actually sat down on a session with him, and he appealed to everyone that, boss, it's a time for co-optation model, like collaboration. A team of young weavers, spinners, garmenters, all of you should come together. Contact me anytime. I'm always available, and let's explore the European market. Amit ji, what's your take? One changing trend in textiles that you foresee?
I think most of the speakers have covered key points, but technical textile is going to be one area of focus where I see the growth is going to be definitely there. So, whether it is going to be used for hospitals, whether it is going to be used for the police or for the army or for the armed forces, this is where, India is lacking behind. And I see there is a great scope in terms of increasing the opportunities of manufacturing. Instead of going on a traditional manufacturing base, one has to think and concentrate more on the technical textile side.
Right. So, a note of advice to everyone present here: Amit ji is always available. Him and his team is extremely proactive. Anybody wants to explore European market, get in touch with him. I'm sure he's somebody who does not mind sharing his contact information. He has been, like, I've been in contact with him, and whenever I've needed something, he's always been there. So if anybody wants, we'll share Amit ji's contact details with them. Anybody who's interested in exploring European markets for any value addition stage in textiles, be it fiber, be it fashion, anything, I think Amit ji is always available. With that, I would request Vivek ji to present us with the concluding note.
So specifically, we were talking about digitization and new kind of a working style. Yes, I think 60 days have been enough to introspect that where the world is going now. And, every third day you get a data, this is going this. It is all about making your own strategies and working on your strengths, basically. And understanding that, there are changes which needs to be adopted. The industry, the core of the industry might remain same. Your strength will remain, manufacturing of textile will remain as a strength, but then the way it has to be presented to the world has to change. That's the so go to market has to change. That's where you quoted somewhere that Chinese are doing well and all those kind of things. It is basically your go to market. If you think, if you're while manufacturing, when you think globally, then while marketing, why you don't think globally? That's the only this thing is, and which you need to change. You need to change. You need to understand that sitting at one place, you have to think about a product, what will work in Australia, what will work in Canada, what will work in Europe, and create a product. There are ways and means which are now the customer acquisition is much more easier to do, and there are ways and means to do it in a very cheap manner, in a very cost effective manner, basically, and in a world class way to do it. Neither compromising on the representation, and do it effectively. And that's where the strength of Indian textile industry. India has a strength of cotton textile and entire this thing. The only thing is it has to be leveraged. It has to be leveraged. We need to come out of our traditional style of doing business. There are people in this industry who have adopted. I'll just give you a very small example. I'm working with a brand which on a 15th day of lockdown came to me and said that we need to do our outlook 3 times of what you were doing as of now. 3 times. They came back and said that numbers were already into multiple of millions, and they said we want to do it 3 times. The entire board came to us on a con call. Entire board, even the mentors like the who is who of industry was there into 2 3, and they came and they said how we can do 3 times. You will not believe, today we are already on a double of the entire booking. Somebody has to think like this. Somebody, there would be people sitting in some place and saying, "Yeah, lockdown ne khatam kar diya. We are not into that." There was another organization who thought, let's do 3 times of the entire thing. My factories will keep on running. So that's the way it has to be. There are technologies, so onus lies on the technology owners like us who are working on the digital space. Go and give the solution to the industry, and this is the way it has to be. Industry has to see that they have to come out of the traditional way of doing business and get into the new mode of doing business. If they adapt this more, I think we will also get more encouraged to give them more solutions. That's the way it is.
I think if you talk about fiber or yarn, there's a huge potential here for both Dhruv and Sumit as long as तुम लोग अपने margins और भाव सही करो. But jokes apart, we had one session in the morning where we had representations from Trident, Aditya Birla Group, Nagrik, and couple of such other textile groups. And I think the general consensus was that now is the time for hand holding. Like we need to cooperate with each other, our suppliers, our buyers, and make sure that only together we can flourish. So with that, we would like to conclude this session. If there's any additional point that anybody would like to add, we can just take it up quickly here. So is there anything else that somebody wants to add?
So I just had one thought that we've covered a lot with regards to sales and marketing, but there's one trend which I've been reading a fair bit about is the manufacturing side, because the social distancing norms will still remain throughout the factory, and that still involves a lot of labor. There has been an exodus of labor back to the villages, and I'm not too sure because most of the manufacturers will give a better idea on terms of how that actually affects the industry. But one of the striking trends as we go ahead, I see, is that there will be a lot more emphasis on newer factories to enable robots and automation that will like eliminate the need of perhaps some sort of labor. There'll always be a need for labor, but then they would want to limit that because one, that brings about efficiency, and it has shown to reduce costs throughout the entire manufacturing. So that is one like just thought that had come about after a fair bit of reading on this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Special thanks to Robin sir and Ridhima for coming and joining us, and extremely special thanks to Amit ji for always being there for us. Amit ji, I think you have something to say.
Yes, I would like to add here. With Vivek ji, we are working and collaborating on a particular project which is for Sholapur as a city. And I would request Vivek ji, maybe he can mention about this. And second, about the cancellation orders which a lot of companies in India have received of lately, and how the e-commerce platform is going to help them. Vivek ji, if you can mention on that, that I think that is going to be a very important takeaway.
Yeah, I'll mention both of the projects. So what happens is, we were time and again saying the smaller manufacturer, how they do it. So what we are trying to do is, we are getting into the small towns and doing the association, and association represents the entire small and larger fraternity of that town. So the first initiative is that we are going to Sholapur, which is basically the cotton and the towels industry and entire this thing, and we are creating a single ID called brands of Sholapur, basically Sholapur, and then that ID is getting representative, and the entire aggregation is happening at the association level. And right from a smaller guy to a larger manufacturer, everybody is getting this thing, and this is getting launched across the digital platforms across regions. So Europe, US, Middle East, and Australia, and Far East, and all. So that's what one thing which e-commerce can do. We are also working with the fashion industry in one of our interaction with Mamiji and a few fashion industry people. We came to know that lot of units have been, orders have been, cancelled by the European brands and all. And so what we are asking the manufacturers to take a release order from the brands. When they are not taking the orders, they can give you a release order saying that you can sell wherever you want to sell. And once you get that, we are enabling them a platform which will generally takes around a huge amount of time, because you do a brand and the brand store and everything. But when you get into a liquidation, I can get you a shortcut method, and where I can take you to few of the platforms very fast. 99 years can take you and liquidate. At least your money is with certain amount of returns come back to you. So that's what we are trying to do. That's a second initiative we are taking, and I think after a few hours we have that conclusive meeting also on that, and we are getting into 7-8 brands and we are doing it. This offer is open to everybody in the entire state, and people with your contacts or somewhere else where you feel this is not there, we have the know-how. We can take you very quickly into that, and at least that capital stock or the good stock can be released. This is one of the ways digitally we can enable. So these two things we are doing very closely, and me and Amiji are working very closely on this. Thank you.
Very nice, sir. Thank you so much, everyone. Yes.
I have a question for everybody who's on the panel today.
Sure.
Do you see a concept of loyal clients to a certain brand diminishing? With so many products out there in the market, and where anyone, anywhere can put in a product and have accessibility to those clients who were once your loyal customers, now they have a plethora of options. Will there something like loyal clients exist anymore?
Dhruv, would you like to take this?
Yeah, so I actually think from a brand perspective, it's even more important for them to have loyal suppliers at the moment, and to act ethically as brands when they're buying from businesses. Gap, for instance, in the US was canceling a lot of orders, was requesting a lot of discounts, and they got a lot of flack from the media in the US itself about acting unethically with suppliers. We're actually seeing a whole whole breed of brands come up that are based on ethical manufacturing. So you have the Everlanes of the world, online brands that are focused on ethical manufacturing. And I think when the world is in turmoil, you kind of go to the most reliable source. So quite the opposite from a brand perspective. I think from a consumer perspective, yes, consumers are younger consumers are less loyal to one brand in particular and do want choice.
Yash, what's your take on this? Mike, please.
From B2B perspective, if we go to see, loyalty is going to matter more than ever. Like trust and understanding is, for me as a manufacturer, I'm only going to supply fabrics to a person I know from before. So honestly, from B2B perspective, loyalty is going to matter. From B2C perspective, I don't see the consumer sticking to a brand per se. They will obviously be hopping around on different platforms from where they get the value. So yeah.
Right. Does that answer your question, Ridhima?
Yes, Pradeep. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to address this? Okay. All right. I think with that, we shall conclude this session. And thank you everyone once again for sparing your time and doing this.
Thanks, Pratik.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Rohitji. Thanks, Ridhima. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit. It was nice meeting you, Dhruv and Vishal also.
Take care.
Thanks to all the panelists
Thanks,
out
guys.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Stay safe.